Hanlon's razor. Never attribute to malice that which can be adequately explained by stupidity. Let's talk about it. So, Hanlon's razor. As the title might suggest, it is a philosophical razor, which basically, how I would explain it, it's like it's not a thought experiment, but it's more of a rule or standard, a principle that you can apply to a problem in order to simplify it, so that you don't take unnecessary action or think about things more than you need to. I think one of the most famous examples is Occam's razor, which we might talk about in another conversation, or maybe I've already had one. I forgot to check. But it's just a way of simplifying things. So that's what we mean by philosophical razor. There's some question about the origin of Hanlon's razor, as to exactly who and how it became a thing. Apparently it was submitted to a book of jokes at one point, which kind of makes sense just with the wording especially, and I'm going to get into the wording because I would like to exchange stupidity with ignorance, maybe, is a little kinder, nicer, more realistic, more applicable, I think, as well, at least for my own purposes. But it is stupidity in the wording. Okay, so let's go through that again. Don't attribute malice. Basically, when you have an opportunity, like your default setting, if you don't know the person's intention, or their actions or whatever have not made their intentions known enough that there might be some discrepancy, it's like giving someone the benefit of the doubt, except this is saying, don't think that their actions are hateful and spiteful and purposefully malicious. Instead, assume that they're just an idiot. And I like this razor a lot because despite the way that it's worded, it can be very helpful to be kinder to people. I think ignorance or the ignorant, that word is a neutral word for me, because I feel like sometimes it's used aggressively and in a very negative context, but other times it's just stating facts of like, that person is ignorant of this thing, or like, I am ignorant to this subject, I don't know what you mean, can you please enlighten me, like I'm just unaware and I don't know. I don't think ignorance is an excuse for things. Like some people say, oh, just claim ignorance, right? Just claim you didn't know that you weren't allowed on that property that you were trespassing. Just claim that you didn't see a sign or you weren't aware of whatever, right? But yeah, so a lot of the time being ignorant, sometimes willful ignorance is something that I don't have much tolerance for. But again, it can be a neutral term in and of itself. It's not inherently negative or positive to me at all. So I think that to use this razor in a more kind way would be to say, assume that, how is it worded again exactly? It's got very specific wording, so I'm just going to quote it again here. Never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity. Or, I would say, adequately explained by ignorance. So, if you analyze the situation, you can give that person the benefit of the doubt of just not knowing, of being, I don't know, because that's the thing. You add the word stupidity in there, and it automatically complicates things for me. Because I think sometimes stupidity, even though this was like a definition I think that Einstein had of insanity, was continuing to try the same thing and expecting different results. But I think that, to me, what is stupid is when people know the outcome or take certain risks, I guess, even if they don't know the outcome, or don't consider the risks, or, to me, that's the difference, I guess. That's stupidity and ignorance. So, I mean, I don't know if there's a different razor or a different device for inserting the word ignorance. It's just a healthier way for me to look at it. because going back to previous conversations about people's mental capability, cognitive abilities of like can't and won't, and like using the word stupidity means that they won't. Like to me, what is stupid is that someone knows the right thing to do and they choose not to do it for whatever reason, and then you could attribute that to either selfishness or pride or who knows what. But a lot of it just, to me, ends up being stupid. Let's just call it stupid. Stupid behavior, right? But if we use the word ignorant in there, we can just say, like, oh, they didn't know. And the thing is, okay, to me, stupidity, acting stupid is malicious. That's where I'm getting hung up on this and why I want to replace that word. So, because if it's saying don't attribute it to malice if you can explain it with stupidity, I think the way that stupid is being used there is more akin to ignorant. It's just being, this person was oblivious because they're, I mean, even the word idiot, right? Like, or, you know, when we go back to the origins of words like dumb, right? It's like deaf, blind, and dumb. Like, not the way that we use it colloquially today to explain someone that we think is acting with not great intellect. I don't know how to word it. But someone who couldn't speak at the time, right? Is that what dumb means? Because that would be mute, right? I feel like I got a vamp while I look things up on the fly. Now I think I'm confusing things, and this is where everything goes off the rails, like normal, lacking intelligence, requiring no intelligence, lacking the human power of speech, which would also be mute, which is just a nicer word now that we've attributed the word dumb to just mean, yeah, lower intelligence or whatever else. But that's the thing, is like stupidity or idiot or dumb or whatever, or those rude words basically are saying the way that I'm caught in the middle, because I think that what ignorance being that neutral term, someone being ignorant, we don't know why they're ignorant all the time. But if we want to assume, we want to use this razor. Here's the thing: why would you use this razor in the first place? Let's go there. Why would you use it? It says to simplify things, right? And so, in a way, like you would be simplifying just your own emotional, I guess, your like the emotional weight you could carry. Because if I assume someone is being malicious to me, then I'm going to go in circles trying to figure out why, and I might hold hate for that person, or dislike, or confusion, or a bunch of emotions. But if I could just say, oh, that person is just being an idiot, like whatever that means to you, that might simplify things to the effect of just like, okay, that person's ignorant, that person didn't know, that person, it doesn't mean that they are absolved of everything and they can't be blamed for something or be responsible for something, held accountable, but it just means that, again, you're not having to question these more emotional responses of like, this person's doing this thing on purpose because they don't like me, and then that carries a bunch of weight that doesn't need to be there. So to simplify it, be like, oh, this person did that because they just didn't know, or they're an idiot, or what, again, whatever idiot means. Now we're getting a whole other thing. But I think that for me, a lot of the time when I talk about someone being stupid, it's a purposeful decision that someone is making, but they are taking too big of a risk, or they're sacrificing other things, or it is a malicious act. I guess like that's the thing, is like people doing things that they shouldn't do when they know better, to me, and when it affects somebody else, that is a malicious act. So that's why I want to change the word into ignorant. Also, it's just kinder. It makes me feel better about feeding that part of me that's trying to be more compassionate. So if we change Hanlon's razor here, just that one word from stupidity to ignorance, I think it's kinder and it's nicer. And this is one of those, like Occam's razor I've known for a long time. And this is one of those things, though, that I'm like, oh, this is actually useful for me. Like, I think that this would actually help me in my again, I don't know, my growth. This would help my growth and the way that I view being compassionate towards others. I think that it does definitely help in that aspect for me to think of like, no, that person's not doing it. It kind of goes with this thing of like my friend was saying, like, it's not about you. Like, it's not about you. It's why are you taking it personally? It's not about you at all. And I talked about that in a conversation a couple weeks back. But yeah, it goes kind of hand in hand with that. It's just like this person isn't doing anything to you. They're doing something for themselves without caring about anyone else, and there's a certain amount of, or they're just ignorant in how it could affect other people. But then again, there's this difference of like, are they ignorant to it or they don't care? Because if they don't care that it's going to affect or impact someone negatively, and they could have avoided it, then to me that's a stupid thing to do. That's a rude, obnoxious, selfish, whatever thing to do, and I want to hold those people accountable and responsible. But if I'm in a situation where I cannot know, like we're in a situation where we're using this razor as a device to make an assumption because we don't have the facts. We're not in a position to know the facts. So if we just say like, okay, I'm just going to assume that person didn't see that sign and just I'm going to move on with my life rather than, no, I think they saw it and they ignored it on purpose and they're not ignorant. They're just horrible people that don't care about their actions on other people and whatever else. Yeah. So Hanlon's razor with that tiny adjustment feels better to me, makes me feel good, helps me, gives me a reminder that I don't know where people are. I don't know where they're coming from. Like, I don't know their personal histories or whatever. For the most part, right? Like, there's very, very few people that you actually feel close enough to understand their motivations and intentions and how they act and why they act that way and where those patterns are coming from and how they were nurtured and what they're doing for their growth right now and all those things, right? That's a very limited number of folks that you have close to you that you would know that about. And everyone else, you'd have to just assume their actions. So why not assume that they made a mistake? For people on the podcast, I got air quotes up there because I still have a hard time with not attributing blame or assigning responsibility because I want people to be able to change. And how do they do that if they're not responsible for their actions? So, I mean, but again, part of this thing is just assuming ignorance rather than maliciousness. And I think that's useful. So I'm going to apply it to my life.